and welcome to another episode of Tween Book Bites here at the Scott County Public Library in Georgetown, Kentucky. I'm Miss Kelly, and this is Miss Mary Lou.
Good afternoon.
Yes, and today we are bringing to you some award-winning books, some real good books.
Yes, every year they announce the winners of all the youth book awards, with the exception of the National Book Award, but the rest of them are announced at the National American Library Association Conference, which is usually in January. And so they did the last week of January, they announced the winners. We needed a little bit of time to read them. We've already read a lot of them, but we needed to read some more, so that's why there's a little lull. But we're here today to talk to you about it, and we're going to start off with an award called the Schneider Family Award. And that award usually depicts a book, depicts a family situation or characters with some kind of disability or mental illness or something along that line.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see, you've got,
Mine is an honor.
Yours, I think
Yours
this
is
was a
the
winner.
winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you do the honor first and I'll do the winner.
So I don't know if y'all have been watching Book Bites from the beginning. I talked about this last year because this is one of my favorite books of last year. I love this book so much. This is Get a Grip, Vivi Cohen by Sarah Caput. Oh, it's the greatest. It's just the best. I don't like sports. That's not my thing. This is a sports book, and it is all told through letters and emails back and forth between Vivi Cohen, our main character here, and pro baseball player VJ Capello. Vivi reaches out to him as part of a class project, and doesn't expect a response back. At first, she's like, "Hey, why am I doing this? Nobody writes letters anymore. This is silly." And her teacher's like, "Just do it, Vivi. Please stop talking. Just do it." And so she does, and she actually gets a response back a while later. And so it's them going back and forth. They both got their own problems that they're dealing with. Vivi's brother is going through something. He used to be like the best brother ever, but now he's really pulled away from the whole family. VJ it's one of his first major seasons, but at the end of the previous season he lost like the big game, and so he's under a whole lot of pressure. But he's also kind of helping Vivi out, and she wants to be a pitcher just like him, and it is so good.
She talks a lot about this book. She loves
I love this book.
Yeah.
I normally, I don't write book talks. I probably should. Mary Lou does, but I love this book so much that I just remembered the things that were happening in this book. Oh, it's so good.
So we are not going to be talking about all the winners. We're just going to be talking about the ones, particularly in this age group. There are winners in younger and older in these categories. So we're going to do this. These are going to be quick because we have a lot of books to talk about. This is the winner of the Schneider Family Book Award, and it is called Show Me a Sign. And this book was written by, I'm sorry, I forgot to review my notes before talking about this book, Anne Claire Lazat. And I think this book is really interesting. This is about a community up in Martha's Vineyard. This is, the year I'm going to say is in the
1800s?
No, I think it's 1600s, maybe 1700s. This is
Oh.
really early on. And in that community.
Wait. 1600s?
Am I wrong?
Martha's Vineyard?
I'm so sorry. Am I wrong here?
I'm just trying to think of my historical dates
No,
there.
you're right. 1805.
Okay.
I knew it was really early in American
Well, I was
history.
thinking
but-
American Revolution, 1776.
Yeah,
And I was
you're
like,
right. You're right. Sorry. Okay, 1805. In this community on Martha's Vineyard, this is the important part, many of the people in that community were deaf. So much so that they developed a sign language that pretty much everyone in the community knew, so that everyone could communicate with each other. And it was a really lovely time, and that was not, in those days, there was not a standard American Sign Language that we have now. So communities where there were a lot of deaf people developed their own languages. And this is about a girl who's 11 years old, growing up in this community. As you read the book, you'll hear that her voice sounds a lot more mature than an 11-year-old, probably just because of the time that she was living in. But I think the book also, I got frustrated with the book sometimes because I felt like there wasn't as much description as I wanted. I'm a person, I love lots of beautiful words and descriptions and the longer book is for me, the better. You know, if it's good, if it's a good book. And I realized that the author of this book probably didn't do as much description because the world of a person with a disability is different. It's just different. And so it's a good book for capturing, I think, that feeling. And I had to think about, you know, why am I frustrated by this? What is it about? What is this book conveying? I read it about the same time that I read a book about a girl who was blind and the author was blind. And I was like, where's all the descriptive language? Well, you experience the world differently when you can't see. You experience the world differently when you can't hear. But kind of the push in the book is in that time when deafness was not well understood, she ends up being kidnapped by a scientist that wants to take her back to Boston and study her. And the degradation she goes through in that process is pretty amazing. And all of this is based on, you know, there really was a large deaf community at Martha's Vineyard. They really did create their own language. And science was pretty rough on people that they decided they wanted to study, and they would kidnap people and put them through some really degrading stuff. So, Show Me a Sign, winner of the Schneider Family Award.
There's a sequel coming out later this year.
That's right. I saw that companion book.
All
okay.
Right.
Stonewall?
Yeah. All right. So I have got Beetle in the Hollow Bones by Eliza Lane. I think I also talked about this one maybe a couple months ago. July? Probably July.
Yeah.
I think that's when we did a Pride collection of books. And this one is a Stonewall honor book that the Stonewall Book Award is named after the famous, what's the word?
Uprising.
Yes, thank you. Uprising. So it celebrates queer culture. And Beetle in the Hollow Bones is just this delightful and gorgeous graphic novel. Look at these colors.
Yes.
Oh, graphic novel about Beetle, who is a goblin witch. This is her up here, and her little friend, the little blob ghost. And blob ghost is stuck in a mall and can't get out. They don't really know why blob ghost is stuck there. And Beetle's old friend Cat, I don't think she's on the cover. Nope, it's disconcerting. She comes back, and she's a princess witch, and they have grown apart, Beetle and Cat. But when they come back together, there's a spark of something. They think maybe things could work out. And Cat's family has bought the mall that Blob Ghost lives in and is going to tear it down. And so Cat helps Beetle and Blob Ghost figure out Blob Ghost. That is just, every time I say it, my mouth's like bleh. I'm like, did I say the right thing? I don't even know anymore. Trying to save Blob Ghost from the building being destroyed and Blob Ghost's home going away. And it's just excellent. It's excellent.
I love the cover.
Yeah.
The cover.
The colors, the art. Mwah. Chef's kiss.
Well, the next award I'm going to talk about is called the Puda Belpré.
Puda Belpré.
And this is a book, an award that's given to books that for positive representations of Latinx culture. And the first book, I'm really not going to talk about this one very much. It's called Lupe Wong Won't Dance. And this is about a girl who is, one of her parents is of Mayan ancestry from Mexico, and another one of her parents is from China. She calls herself a Mexanese or what's the other one? A Chinacan or something like Chinacan. Anyway, she has funny names for her racial blend. I'm not going to talk about this book very much, partly because I've only read 30 pages of it. But in March, we're going to do books about sports, characters in sports. And this book, her dream is to be a pitcher in the Major League Baseball. And so this book is very much about sports, and I'm going to save it for that, but it did win a medal. The winner of the gold Puda Belpré is called Erin Divided, and it was written by Ernesto Cisneros. And this book just, it broke my heart. It's about a boy named Erin, and his parents, both of them, are undocumented immigrants from Mexico. He was born in the United States, as were his younger twin siblings. He's 12, and he has 6-year-old siblings, Max and Mia. Max had a difficult birth and has gotten some brain damage. He needs a lot of support and care as he has some behavior problems. And both of their both of the parents work multiple jobs to support the family. They're very poor. They live in a poor neighborhood with mostly other immigrant families. And one day, Efren's mother doesn't come home. She's been caught up in a raid by ICE, which is the immigration and
I don't remember.
Immigration Service. It's the law enforcement branch that deals with immigration. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what ICE stands for, but there was a raid. When she was at work, she was swept up and she was deported. So now his father has to work 2 jobs to try to earn enough money. He's basically not even sleeping to earn enough money. I think he's working 3 jobs. I'm sorry, enough money to pay a quixote to bring his wife back in the United States. And Efren is left to look after his siblings. He's doing the cooking, he's doing the shopping, he's doing the cleaning. He's trying to run the house while maintaining his schoolwork. He's a very, very serious student. A straight A student, works really hard, but suddenly his grades are starting to slip. And then to kind of top it off, he's forming this friendship with another really, really smart girl. They're kind of academic competitors in a friendly way. Jennifer Huertas, pronunciation's not good, and the mask isn't helping. She is also caught with her mother and deported. So he sees a lot of this going around him, and it's about what life is like when you live on the edge like that, with that kind of uncertainty. And it's a very moving portrayal of that life. Very, very good book. Efren Divided. Lupe Wong won't dance. I'm just loving this book. It's hilarious.
All right. And my next book I have got is How We Got to the Moon by John Rocco. It was a Robert F. Seibert honor book, as well as a Excellence in Young Adult Nonfiction finalist, an honor book basically. So this one is interesting because the Seibert is for slightly younger readers, and the Yalsa one is for teens.
We're going to talk about another that has both of those awards.
Yeah, so this is kind of a crossover book, maybe for older readers, not anything inappropriate for any younger readers. It is, but it's very science heavy. So
yes, it's a lot of content.
It is so much. But this book, I skimmed this last hour, and it is gorgeous. It is completely illustrated by John Rocco. It is, oh man, it's so cool. And it also includes like experiments to kind of show you how different parts of the rockets worked, which I thought was a really nice addition. And it takes you all the way from here's how we decided we were going to go to the moon to here's how we got to the moon. Completely through. It covers so many different topics and different parts of the spaceships, how they made the astronaut suits. Ooh, so detailed. You could, honestly, I kind of want to go back and just sit down and read this book cover to cover, but you wouldn't have to, because it takes it in chunks, and it would be very easy to just pick part of the book and read it, and
and that's
so
really
cool.
unusual for a book to get both of these awards, but that happened with the one I'm going to talk about. It got a 3rd award, a Newbery award, and I'm going to talk about this with the Newbery, but this also got a Seibert honor and a Yalsa nonfiction honor, and this is also just, holy cow, it's so good. All right, Coretta Scott King Award. This Coretta Scott King Foundation hands out numerous awards. A debut author, they do an illustrator. This is their award for an author, given to kind of a middle grade fiction book. And this one has been given to a book called Before the Ever After, and it was written by the fabulous Jacqueline Woodson, who has written many, many books. She has so many Coretta Scott King awards, as well as Newberys and National Book Awards. This woman has won so many awards for her writing. And this book is about, it's a book in verse. It's a very quick read. I read it yesterday. It's blank verse, and it's about a boy. It takes place around the year 2000, so it's a little bit historical. And it's about a boy whose father is a NFL superstar. He's won bunches of Super Bowls. He's just a great football player and just a great guy. He's a good father, this boy, he calls his son Little Man. His name is Zechariah, but his dad calls him Little Man. And Little Man adores his father, but his father's changing. His father's a very gentle man, and he's suddenly losing his temper. He's getting a little foggy-headed. And as the book progresses, he gets where sometimes he doesn't know who Little Man is. He doesn't know who anybody is. He's lost. He looks outside. He doesn't know what anything is. And this book, the issue it's dealing with is repeated concussions and the long-term damage it does to the brain of football players. And in the year 2000, we didn't know very much about it yet. They were beginning to see the problem, but it took quite a while before it was actually diagnosed, given a name, and it's a degenerative disease due to repeated trauma to the brain, so you can't fix it, but there are things that can be done to make it better. But it's the impact of a family as they realize that this man who's in his 30s is losing his ability to function. It's very moving story.
Yeah.
And
Football, will wreck a body.
Yeah. Okay, so Pacific Rim?
Yes. Do you want to do yours first?
I'll do mine
Since mine
first.
was also.
Yes. Pacific Rim is an award that's given sort of like the Prix Prairie to recognize literature contributions in children's literature, people from Asian countries. Am I saying that right?
It is the
Asian Pacific America Award for Literature.
Yes.
Yes. And one of the books that got it this year was one called Prairie Lotus, and it is by Linda Sue Park, who is also an author who's won more awards than I can ever list. And this book, and I'll be as brief as I can with this. She grew up on the Little House on the Prairie books. She is Korean American, and she loved the Little House books. But she found there were certain parts, and she said she read them over and over again. But as she read them and became more familiar with them, there were places that she would skip. And it wasn't until she was an adult that she began to think about why she was skipping those particular parts. And as an adult, she began to realize that those were Laura Ingalls Wilder was a writer of her time, and the Little House books reflect racism and prejudices that were prominent in her time, but that does not make them less offensive to people, to readers, particularly readers of color or other cultures. And so she still loved those books. She would skip those parts, but she decided to write her own tribute to that time and to those books that she loved so much. And Prairie Lotus, if you've read the Little House books, this takes place sort of in the same time period in the Little House series when they have a little town on the prairie. It's in a town in DeSmet, North Dakota, I think. Anyway, Hannah is a daughter of a Chinese. She was a girl that was born in China. She was adopted. She was an orphan. She was adopted by American missionaries, who then brought her to America. She grew up, lived in Chinatown. She married a white man, which at the time was illegal, and the harassment they experienced was horrible. Chinese people living in Chinatown were horribly persecuted during this time, and at one point there was a big fire that was set, and Hannah's mother was in the fire. She breathed in a lot of smoke that had ruined her lungs, and she died very young because of this damage to her lungs. And she's since been raised by her father, who tends to move around a lot because he gets so much harassment for having this mixed race daughter. And they finally settle into Smith, and he's going to open up a store. He's got the money to open up a store of cloth goods, like where you would go to buy your fabric and needles and thread and stuff to make clothing. And Hannah, who learned how to sew from her mother, who was a seamstress, wants to make clothing. But this is about their life in DeSmet, and it was good and it was bad. She wants to go to school. The parents are outraged that this mixed race girl is coming to their school, and they withdraw their children. She has to really fight for her right to go to school. She develops a friendship with some of the indigenous women that live outside of their community. And she goes out there and learns how to gather some food and that kind of thing from these women, develops a really nice relationship with them. giving a much more respectful portrayal of Indigenous people than the Little House books did. So this is a really nice, last time we talked about the Birch Bark House series, which was an Indigenous response to the Little House books. Those Little House books have been really influential, and it's really neat to hear some voices, other cultures coming back and writing stories from that same time period in that same vein. I hope she will do some sequels to this. Yeah. Got it.
Do you want me to do this one, or do you want to talk about the other ones?
I think we should do the last.
Yeah.
The winner goes last. So we're going to talk about the Newbery, because that's the big one. That's the big one.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the honors first, and then we'll talk about the gold. And I think I'm going to talk about all the honors, and we're going to talk about the gold.
Yep.
All right. So this one, all 13, the incredible cave rescue of the Thai boys soccer team, written by Christina Soontornvat. Christina Soontornvat is my new favorite writer. She also, this is quite a feat. She won all 3 of these medals this year: Newbery Honor, YALSA Nonfiction Honor, and Cyber Honor. She also won a Newbery Honor for a novel, which was, I'm sorry, these two should have both won gold. That's just all there is to it. Some of you may or may not remember that several years ago, I believe it was 2018, 13 boys in Thailand that had been playing soccer got through with their soccer match and went with their coach to explore a cave. They had an afternoon to kill, and they decided to go into this cave and explore it. And Thailand has a rainy season, and you just don't go anywhere near caves in the rainy seasons, because they have what are called karst caves, which are caves that are very porous. We have those in Kentucky. They talk about Mammoth Cave in this book. And that means a lot of water gets through. It seeps through the ground into the pores of the cave because of the limestone, which has developed these little tunnels in it. And it's not the rainy season yet, so they're not worried about it. They go in the cave, they go about 3 miles back into the cave, which is pretty far. In fact, there's some points where they have to squeeze their bodies through openings in the passages. It's that narrow. But these are boys. They're adventurous. They're athletic, and they're just up for any challenge. But while they're in the cave, the rainy season starts with a flourish. It just starts pouring rain. They're in the cave all afternoon, 3 miles back. They do not know that it's raining until they suddenly hear water rushing at them in the cave. And they get up on a ledge and they stay there, but they don't have any way to tell anybody where they are or that they're trapped. They don't have, they left their bikes, they left all their food, they left their shoes, they left everything at the mouth of the cave. They're in shorts, having played soccer, stuck in this cave. And this book is about the rescue. People came from all over the world to rescue these boys, and it was huge. They were trapped in that cave for, I think, 2.5 weeks before they finally got them out. It's an incredible story. And I've read another book about it, and that book was really interesting. This book was great. I could not put it down. And what she does, a lot like what Kelly just talked about, she'll have sidebars. I didn't know what a karst cave was until I read this book. And she's got a little sidebar, a whole page with illustrations that tell you what is a karst cave. She has several maps of the caves, and you learn about cave diving. These boys, their soccer coach was a deeply religious man, is a deeply religious man. He is a Buddhist. He grew up in a Buddhist monastery, and he was a very serious meditator, and he taught the boys meditation for part of their practice as soccer players. So they'd be really focused when they're game. So these boys, a lot of how they survived in the cave without losing their minds, because it's pitch dark, you can't see anything. They were cold, they were hungry, but he would teach them he would get them to meditate. And the book explains what is Buddhism and what is this about. In America, when we think of a monk, they go into a monastery and they stay for the rest of their life. That is not true in Buddhism. But it just goes into all of that stuff, and it's just the most remarkable story. She knew that other books had been written about this rescue, but she wanted to write a book about it from a Thai perspective, bringing in Thai culture. Her parents, she was raised in America, but her parents are Thai, and so she's Thai-American, and she spends a lot of time in Thailand with her extended family. So some of the problems they had with the cave rescue had to do with a misunderstanding between cultures. And that part was particularly interesting. When they brought in the American SEALs, and they were in there, and they were just gonna go in there, gonna do blah, 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 blah. Whereas in the Thai military, you know, there's a great deal more reservation and a great deal more respect, and they had to kind of work through their different styles. Nobody meant to do anything wrong, it was just a different style that really damaged their communication and the effective working relationship for a while. So that part was just really super interesting. All 13 incredible cave rescue of the Thai boys soccer team by Christina Soon Tornbat. Fabulous book. What else? This book, I would not have given this to Newbery. I'm just gonna be straight out honest. This book is called Box. Henry Brown Mails Himself to Freedom. It is a good book. It's a really good book. Particularly, I loved the artwork in this book. It is a picture book. And I'm sorry, I just don't think, this is my opinion, picture books should not get Newbery. That's controversial in the book community, but that's just my opinion. I think there should be an award for the Caldecott is given for illustration. I think there should be an award for the text. But this one, if you don't know the story, this man, Henry Brown, was a slave, an enslaved person, and he was allowed to marry. He fell in love with a woman. He was allowed to marry, and they had 4 children. And his master promised never to sell off his family, but he went back on his word, and he did. And they were sold to somebody nearby, so at least he could still see them. But then when the owner, the person who owned his wife and children, when he died, the property was split up between the man's sons. His wife and children were sold off and sent off, and so he finally decided he was going to he couldn't have maintain a relationship with his wife and family who were sold down further south. He was going to escape, and he got a friend to build him a box, and he put himself in the box, and they sealed it up with some holes for air, and they shipped him to a group of abolitionists in the north who were told, go to the train station, pick up this box on this day. And he almost died in the process. They had written this side up, they flipped it, he took a lot of the journey on his head in a box, which made all the blood kind of rush to his head, and he literally almost died.
Oof.
But it's his escape, and then how he kind of created a dramatization of this and went on a tour. It's how he supported himself. But it's written in verse, the text is written in verse, and they're paragraphs. And I think my frustration with this book is I wanted more. I didn't want a paragraph on Nat Turner and his uprising, which was part of what inspired him. I wanted more. So it was not like it was bad. It's very well written. The author, Carol Boston Weatherford, is a renowned and won many awards for her writing. I just wanted more. That's all. I wanted more information. But I was very struck by the artwork. It was just gorgeous. And it's a great story. My gosh, it's a great story. So I do recommend it. It would have gotten a different medal from me than this one. That's all I can say. Okay, quickly.
Yeah.
We Dream of Space.
Yeah.
This is by Erin and Trotta Kelly. Good Lord,
She's
woman,
delightful.
She's wonderful, and she won the Newbery gold medal for her book, Somewhere in the Universe.
Something like
No,
that.
Hello Universe.
Yeah.
Hello Universe. Anyway, I love her book. She's written about, I think there's 2 that I have not read by her. I've read most of her stuff. And this one is just as good as the others. I actually like this better than Hello Universe. This takes place in the 1980s when the Challenger space shuttle was going up into space carrying a teacher. Now, I don't know if you remember that little piece of history, but that shuttle, when it went up in the air, it exploded, and everyone in the shuttle died instantaneously. And to put that in context, because it's the first time they'd ever sent somebody up into space that was not an astronaut, it was a public school teacher. Every school in the country was watching this as it happened. This is a very riveting, everyone was so excited about the launch of the space shuttle, and then the horror of when it exploded. I was watching TV that day and I saw it happen. It was horrible. So this is about a family with 3 siblings. We've got a daughter whose name is Bird, and she's the main. She's kind of she's the anchor of this beautiful story. And Bird, she's very smart, scientifically oriented. Her hobby, her passion is buying antique radios, taking them apart, fixing them. Any machine, her whole room is filled with machines, and she draws schematics of all these machines. She's obsessed with it, and she wants to be an astronaut, and she's obsessed with this whole space trip. She has 2 brothers. She has a twin brother whose name is Fitch, and then an older brother, Cash, who is a boy who is definitely headed for trouble. He is already repeating the 7th grade. Fitch and Bird are in 6th grade, and he's about to repeat it for a 2nd time because he's just a goof off, and he's kind of mean. And the parents in this book it's a horrible marriage. They hate each other. And instead of divorcing, they stay together, but they fight all the time. And they rip each other apart. They curse, they yell, they are just vicious. And they kind of ignore the kids because they're caught in this battle. And these kids are trying to survive it. And Bird is the peacemaker. She's always trying to make peace between people. And her brothers are kind of turning out more like the parents. They're kind of being mean. And so this follows Bird as she watches this preparing in school. They're preparing for this space launch. The family trying to cope with this dysfunctional marriage, and ultimately the beauty in this book is and I'm going to give a spoiler here. Sorry, but I want you to read it. The siblings pull together. They pull together because they make a different choice for how they want to be and how they want to live their lives and how they want to treat each other. It's just, I'm going to start crying. It's a beautiful book. It's just, okay. A Wish in the Dark. Quick, Mary Lou. By Christina Soon Tornbat. And I also probably would have given this the gold instead of the silver. I love this book so much. It is fantasy. It takes place in a culture built on Thai cultures. I told you earlier, Christina Soon Tornbat, who wrote the one about the cave rescue, is Thai American. And it takes place in a city based on Bangkok. Pong is a boy who is born in prison. His mother was a prisoner. She died in childbirth. And in this mythological land, and this is not true, this is just in the story, children born to female prisoners have to stay in prison until they're 13 years old. Even when Pong's mother died in childbirth, he had to remain in prison until he was 13. And his best friend, Somkit, is also an orphan. And they're about the same age, and they hang out together all the time. And they just dream of freedom and what they're going to do when they're set free. And Pong has a fantasy. In this land, they have a governor. That there was this devastating fire in the city. Everything was destroyed. And this governor comes down off, this man comes down off the mountain, and he can produce light and power through his body. And that energy, that power can be contained in an orb. It gives light, and it powers motors, and it's like electricity, and he can contain it in these orbs. And he's very compassionate and charismatic, and he becomes the ruler of this province or city or this area, whatever. But as the longer he's there, the more ironclad he gets in his obsession with law and order. And so these children born in this prison, they get a tattoo that indicates they're a prisoner. And only when they're 13 and they're released do they get a little symbol across their tattoo that says they're no longer prisoners. If they escape and they're caught, they go to an adult prison where they will serve a very long sentence. The Pong escapes from the prison because he's just so discouraged, and he ends up being taken in by a monastery up in the mountains, a Buddhist monastery, where he is basically raised by a man named Father Cham, who teaches him meditation, who teaches him compassion, who teaches him mercy. And so when Father Cham dies and he has to escape because he is wanted, he goes back into the city where he finds his friend again and becomes part of a community of people that are trying to rise up against this government. And it's just, I wish it gives another one. I wish it had been longer. I wish it had been 600 pages long because I wanted her to spend more time in each area. And the world she creates it's not high fantasy. There's a lot of what we know in our reality, but she creates a land that is very mystical and just, I was enchanted by the whole book. And I love the characters. It was just so very good. Okay, that's just way too much. I'm sorry.
All right, so for our last
Nicole.
one, yes, this is the winner of the Newbery Medal for 2021. I almost said 2020. That was wrong. It also, I believe, is the winner of the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature for Children. At the very least, it was an honor. Those seals are kind of funky. They don't really specify. So, When You Trap a Tiger follows Lily and her mother and, I believe, older sister. And they are, all of a sudden, Lily's mom says, hey, we're going to go and live with, well, she doesn't actually say that. She's like, hey, we're going to go visit Halmoni, which is Korean for grandmother. And unbeknownst to them, their grandmother is very, very ill. I don't know that it's ever specified, but she's got what is basically Alzheimer's, and she is slowly forgetting things, and reality is blending into fantasy. And so Lily loves her grandmother's stories. She keeps telling her things. Her grandmother was born in Korea, and she keeps telling Lily all these great stories that she was told by her mother and grandmother. And Lily's older sister is just super upset to have been uprooted from everything. And on the way there, Lily is convinced that she sees a tiger jump out into the middle of the road in the rain. Nobody else sees it. She scares the bejeebies out of her mom, and her mom like slams on the brakes. But everybody's like, what in the world is wrong with you? There's not a tiger in the middle of the road. But she slowly, something that Halmoni says to her gets her stuck on, I believe it's these star fragments. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to collect things, or no, she's going to let him go. Yes.
She's scared of the tiger. She's scared the tiger's going to come get her grandmother, and she's going to give the tiger the stories to
yes.
protect her grandmother.
Thank you. It's been a while. Yes. Yeah. And so, and so slowly you see her grandmother kind of fade, so to speak. And
It's also, the book really deals a lot with death because their father was in a car wreck and died some years ago. And I think particularly Lily has a hard time accepting that she's losing her grandmother after having lost her father.
Oh yeah. And at first she just like refuses to see that that's really what's happening. And
and as a reader, you have to figure out what's real.
Yeah.
And it's very
because it very much is like, oh, okay, yeah, she's talking to this tiger, and this tiger's like, hey, give me these stories. Your grandmother stole them from me. And so, but then you're like, wait, what is this real? Is this fantasy? It's a whole lot of blending there.
Now, do you think it should have gotten the gold? Of course, you haven't read most of these other ones.
I haven't read any of the other ones,
Yeah,
I don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
I definitely. But again, this is my favorite book.
Yeah.
So I'm biased. I think it's really good though. So I mean, it definitely deserves something.
It's a good group of books though. It's just
Yeah.
It's just you're not going to go wrong reading any of these books, in my opinion.
Nope, not at all.
And it's a variety. It's a really interesting mix of books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next time we're coming to you.
We're going to talk about Women's History Month.
Yeah. So some books featuring some strong female protagonists and some history books.
Yep.
We'll see what we can come up with. Until then, we will see you later. Bye guys.
Bye.